Hello viewers, welcome back. We are now looking at common sized income statement. As we mentioned, we want to build a common size income statement that is going to be down here. It's going to be below these values. We are going to have it there in our law 41. This common sized income statement is very commonly used in analysis, and it's used to effectively compare every line item of the income statement up to the revenue line. So we use this common sized income statement to compare each line item of the income statement, be it gross profit, cost of goods sold, be it revenue itself, be it the EBITDA, SG&A, depreciation, and all other line item. And we compare that with the revenue line. In other words, we use all the items in the income statement and we compare them to our revenue figures. And that's basically what we are going to be doing the computations. We definitely want to make use of some of the great formatting, the formatting that we already have in place. We want to use the formattings that we have already created, and in fact we are going to go all the way to the top of the model. We are going to move all the way to the top of the model here, and we are going to pick these items from the assumptions. We are going to pick the things from the assumptions, including the global units marker and the years. In other words, we are going to highlight all these values. We are going to highlight all these values you are seeing. We are going to take all these values from the assumption section. We are going to use shift highlight. We are going to use shift to highlight across like that. And now we are going to move all the way down to that point. So we are going to take that section we've highlighted from row 3 to row 6. And we are going to do a copy. So we use Ctrl+C to copy that. And we are going to head down to this place right here in cell in row 41 here. And what we are going to do from that point, we are going to make sure that we copy whatever we paste whatever we copied from the other section. So we do a Ctrl+V to paste that information. And now you can see we have gotten that information right here. So this is the information that we've copied from the other item. So that's the information that we copied from there. So what we are going to do, we are going to make sure that we add just this label here for assumptions. We double click in it, or we use the F2 to go into that section right there. So we are going to change it to common size income statement. So we can call it common size. So now we've adjusted that value right there. And now we have common size, just like the way you're seeing it. So, but now we always prefer to have our model to be as dynamic as possible. So we need to make sure that at least everything that we have is linked up to is linked up within the model. In other words, you are seeing we've copied this information from the other side. But for us to make sure that our model is dynamic, like for example, you are seeing that this global unit mark here, it is the value that it is that information that we picked from, that we copied from the other assumption section. So we want this one also to change. In other words, if we try to change, maybe we are changing our currency. We are moving out of using dollars, maybe to Ugandan shillings. If we add just this point here, like the way you're seeing in here, if we add just maybe we want these values to be in UGX, Ugandan shillings. As we press enter there, we want also this figure to change. Because you've seen, I've added just the other one to Ugandan shillings, but this one is still in US dollars, which means for you to be able to have that change, you have to come here and also change this. So that alone calls for an adjustment in those values so that they can actually be as fixed, in other words, as dynamic as they can. So that if we change this point, just like the way we've changed it to UGX, even the other figures keep on adjusting themselves. So we put them back to USD. That's what we had there. So we want to link up that point. So what we are going to do, we are going to come into this cell. That cell you are seeing F, it is B43. So we want to make sure that we connect this value. So we are going to come into that cell, and we are going to put in an equal sign. So we put in equal sign, and we are going to move all the way to link up that cell to B5. We move all the way to cell B5 where we picked that information. We picked it from cell B5. This is the cell B5. But now we want to make sure that we lock that cell B5 in place. But the issue here is that we are going to, one, there are two options. You can use the F4 key. You hit the F4 key once, or you manually put in those dollar signs. So for you to be able to put in the dollar symbols, you hit the shift and then 4, because it is on that 4 key, number 4 key, that has that dollar sign on top. So you hit the shift, then you press 4. So when you do that, you'll be able to put in some of those dollar signs. So we are going to put them manually. We come here, let's put them from this point. But now we want to only lock these values at that point. That's why we are going to put in dollar signs. We are locking that cell. We are not locking the row alone, we are locking the cell. So we put in 2 dollar signs. We come here and put in shift 4 to put in that dollar sign, and we also come to this point, we also put shift, then that 4 to put in that second dollar sign. In other words, that means we are locking the cell 5, sorry, the row 5, and at the same time we are locking the column B. That's why we are putting in those 2 dollar signs. Then you come and hit enter. When you are done with that, you'll find that these values are now okay. They are all set up. But now we want to see what we have actually done. So you come to this cell and you hit the F2 key to get into that cell, and we'll try to change this one to UGX, and we hit the enter. We see whether the other values are also going to change. That's what we wanted to find out. So you are seeing that all values are now in UGX, meaning we have changed that cell. That's what we call having the model dynamic. So we can come here and also hit the F2 key to come and change this one to back to what we had of USD, hit the enter and come and see whether the values have changed. So we are seeing it is now back to US dollar thousands unless stated. So now the other thing is that we also want these years. We want to make sure also these years are dynamic too. So in other words, if we try to roll forward the model and maybe we try to adjust to maybe 2029, 2030, we try to roll forward the model, we can have that dynamic. In other words, if we happen to come here and we change this year maybe to 2023, if we change that to 2023, we want also this value down here also change, because now I've changed the other one 2023, but this one is still 2022, which means these years are not dynamic. So what we are going to do, we put it back to 2022, and we are seeing that the model is not dynamic. We've seen that. So what we are going to do, we have also to link up that to make sure that at least we have that also linked. So what are we going to do? We are seeing that we are in this cell F43. So what we are going to do, we are going to put in an equal sign, and we pop up to our top side here from where we pick this information in row 5. This is the row 5 that we are in. This is the row 5. It is F5. So want to make sure that we are going to go into that cell, as you have seen, F5. And now we are going to make sure that we also make sure that this value here, this cell we are picking, it is going to be also having those dollar signs. In other words, the dollar symbol is supposed to also be there. In other words, we want that cell locked. But now the challenge here is that we are only going to change the row, this row here, row 5. We are not going to be changing the column F, which means that we are only going to lock only the cell, the row, not the cell, because a cell is a combination of a row and a column. That's why you are seeing F for column and 5 for row. So we are only going to put a dollar sign in front of the 5, which means we are only locking the row. So we put in $1 sign, we use shift 4, and then we hit enter. We will see that we have made adjustment to that year and we have connected it. The other way we can do the same, what we've just done, is by coming and you hit into, you be in that cell and you just tap the F4 to the F4 key, because the F4 key repeats the last command. Remember the last command we were changing this, but now for this one we would come and adjust the formula, because this one had $2 signs. We are locking the cells. We are locking the cell, not the row. But here we only lock the row because it is only the row that is going to be changing. Because if we change the years, we are only changing that value for because these number of years, they are going horizontally. That's why we are putting in just a $1 sign to have that in place. So it is perfectly done. Now, in this cell right here, cell F43, it is that cell that has the formula. Because now if you click in this cell G43, you'll find that we have a different formula here. And that's not what we want. We want the formula here to be like the way you're seeing it there. In other words, what we want to have, we want to make sure that we also link up with these other values. So what are we going to do? What we are going to do from this point, we are going to make sure that we copy and paste everything the other side. But now we are not going to do a copy and paste for everything across the side up to 2028. No, because if we do that, we are going to mess up these nice little borders that we put in place. So what we are going to do, we are going to copy this point, and now we are only copying the value in F43. Control C, and now what we are going to do, we highlight across using Shift right arrow, and we make sure that now we are going to use a paste special. In other words, we are not going to do a paste, a normal paste, because if we do a normal paste, we are going to disorganize those nice borders that we put in place, but we want our formatting to be okay. So what we are going to do, we do a paste special. This, and the paste special is going to be Alt ES for a paste special. Or you can hold down the control key, then you hit the Alt key, and at the same time you hit the V. It does the same thing, Control Shift V. It is the same as Alt ES. All of those do what we call paste special. So now what we are going to do from this dialog box for paste special, we are going to go down using the down arrow to go down to formulas. We go down to formulas, then we can now hit the enter key. When we do that, you'll find that we have not adjusted anything, and we have these other things are also in place. If you hit that value, cell G43, you'll find that the formula is changed now to G $5, which is what we wanted. So it is now perfectly done as we wanted it to be. So we now have the formulas now linked up all the way across to this fifth row, this one of 20, the L43. Now what next is that what we are going to do is we want to grab all the labels that we have already in place for income statement. We want to come here. Let's first move this cursor a little bit to that point. Now let's maybe use the scroll key to position some of the things in place. The scroll key, or the scroll key, we said we use Fn plus C. You're seeing we have the scroll lock in place, so we can come and maybe, yeah, we put, I think that will give us a space that we are going to paste, because we are going to paste the other information, and we need to have a space to be looking at what we have. So it is perfectly done. Now we can hit back the scroll key, Fn plus C, to back out, for those who are not having the scroll lock key on their keyboard. So now what we are going to do, we are going to grab all these values here. Let's go to the income statement here. We are going to grab all these labels here from the income statement itself. We copy everything that we have there up to the net income. So we want to select from revenue. We highlight, we can use Shift, Control Shift right arrow, and then we use a down arrow to move, to highlight all those values that we have for the income statement, we are going to copy everything from there and we go and grab them, we paste them to our common size income statement. So now, what we have to do now for these values, as you've seen, we have all these other formattings that we need. The other person could actually just take up only these values and we take up to that year. The first year, we can take up to that first year only, because this first year also has the formattings that we need. We can copy that and we paste it the other side, because it will also bring out the formattings that we have, we want to use, because these are going to come as inputs. That's why we are only picking out the inputs. But it's okay even if you copy everything. But if we copy everything, it is going to be a little bit filled up, and we shall find ourselves having things that are filled that may confuse the viewers. But let's just pick that, and we have a little space where we can actually show these guys what we did to actually have those numbers in place. So what we are going to do, we can now come here and do a copy, because what we only want from these points, we only need the formats. We can do a copy, Control C to copy that, and we are going to move down to row. Let's paste it, I think, to row. Let's use this one, row 45. We leave just one space, one line there. We are going to paste that from that point. So we can also try to use the scroll key to bring that into focus. Fn plus C. We want to have this, but let's first paste. Let's first do a paste, Control V, to have that pasted there. Then now we can use the F. We can use the F and N, Fn plus C for us to make sure that at least we have this in focus. So that's what we have for now. We've copied those values. Now at least we can be able to see those figures there. So we can now come and try to make adjustments, because we've gotten all the formattings that we need. So we have all these numbers. We have all these numbers down here. But now, these values you are seeing, we are going to use the inputs. Actually, what we are going to do, we are going to make sure that this column here, column 22, column F, for the year 2022 actuals, we are going to put these in formulas. Let's just use formulas. In other words, these very things that you are seeing, these very items you are seeing here, these are the information that we copied from the income statement. So we can just put in formulas instead of wasting time here by copying the inputs, and at the same time we do the computation. We can just pick everything. We make sure that these are all going to be in formulas, because we are going to compute everything that we are going to have in common size income statement is supposed to be computed. In other words, we are just going to pick the inputs from the income statement. So that's what we are going to do. And we are definitely going to make sure that those are actually formulas for those values. Then we can copy and paste, or we can do a fill right to make sure that we have these other things in place also. So let's now try to put in some formulas in this, for this column F. And when we have the values for this, if we have the values from this point, then we can actually, let's first try to have these values in place, and now we can be able to have some of those in place also. So let's try to compute the values here for the whole of this. that row. If we finish it, that column, then we can try to fill right and we get the values for those other areas. So we make sure that those are actually formulas, and after putting in the formulas, we can now be able to do the rest. So what we are going to do, since these are going to be formulas, we are going to highlight, shift down arrow. Since all these are going to be formulas, so we need to change their font colors. In other words, formulas, we say they are going to be in black, then inputs are going to be in blue. So what we are going to do, we change. So we go to Alt. We know font colors are in the home section of the ribbon. So we hit H for home and then FC for font color. Then we can just select that black as you've seen from that point. But we have these values, as we've said last time, these values that we put in brackets, we customized them, and that's why for them they can't just change. So we need to go to the format section. Remember, those were pinned in blue, so we need to come here and change it to black. That's the only way we can actually come and change here. So you've seen now we've changed them to black. Hey, they are not all, even these. We come here and also do the same thing. These are supposed to be in black, because this is what we set in the first place. Meaning, if you do a mistake and you don't remember, you'll find some of the things not changing. So that's what we have for now. We put all those in black, and what we have to do, we need now to put in the formulas. But now, the way you make a common sized income statement is by dividing each line item by the revenue. In other words, we are going to divide everything over the revenue and we get those percentages. So you have to watch carefully what we do, because you need to understand how we do this. So we are going to start from here. We are going to start from the very cell for revenue. From that very same point, we divide the same value. So we are going now to go, we are going to put in the equal sign and go up to the other side of the income statement. So we are dividing that same cell, because now we are getting revenue over revenue. That's a 1. Of course, we are getting the value in the revenue divided by the revenue number, which is going to give you 1. Because we are getting the revenue that we have divided by the revenue. But remember, we are picking this information. You can use the page up to move to these other places. But if you can use what I'm using, the up arrow, it will be fine also. So we get that value from there. So it is that value, and we are dividing it by the same value. So now we come and hit enter. And we are getting a 1 there. The reason as why we are getting a 1 is because we are dividing revenue over revenue. But now here, for these points here, we are going to take equal sign there. We grab the cost of goods sold, we divide by the revenue, and we see the percentage. But now, before we proceed to this, there is something I want also to discuss. On this one, the one we've done, you are seeing we've gotten our revenue divided by revenue, and we got a 1. But remember, in our formula, the formula is going to be for those we are going to get the line item. This is the formula. We divide by revenue value. So what this means is that we shall get revenue divided by revenue, the revenue. We get cost of goods sold over revenue. We get gross profit over revenue. In other words, we are just getting percentage. It is a percentage of revenue. In other words, we are trying to get what is the percentage of that item from our revenue. In other words, if it is a tax, what is the percentage of that tax from our revenue? That's what we are trying to get out. That's what we are trying to get from this point. So what this means is that the revenue, the denominator here, is supposed to be locked. In other words, if you don't use these dollar signs, it's okay, as long as you know what you're doing. But it would be better if you are using these dollar signs, because we are making sure that we are locking the revenue in one place. It is only these other things that are going to be changing. So we can come here and change. We put in the dollar sign there, and we also put in the dollar sign there. We are locking the whole cell. But you make sure as you are putting in those dollar signs, because if you put in a dollar sign wrongly, then you are also going to have a problem. The implication there for putting two dollar signs is that we've locked that one cell. Now for this one, for revenue, we've locked that one cell. But remember, we are going to copy and paste to these other places, which means we are only going to lock the row alone, not locking the column. In other words, we are only going to put in one dollar sign. That one dollar sign is going to be in front of the revenue value. That revenue value is what is F. It is this place. So remember, we are getting these values. We are picking them from our income statement. But now, here there is something you can change. If you come and hit enter, it will also give you a 1. But there is also something we need to note. Before we put in these answers here, let me just do Ctrl Z to undo those values. Back to that. We had a 150 in here. So we can also say equal sign the cell we have, that is F45. We divide by this one. We go up here and pick that one. So it can also work. It can also work if you put in, you lock these cells. But now we are going to use that F17. Let's use the previous, not to confuse you, the previous value. This is, we divide by F17, and we are going to lock only that row, 7 shift. We hit enter, we get that one. Then now we can copy the formulas and we paste them downwards in that cell, because we have already put in the values that we want. So we've put in the values that we want. So hope you can be able to see what exactly we are doing now. So we can now copy that and we fill those cells. But now remember, these values are supposed to be in percentages. They are supposed to be in percentages. We are seeing it is only 1, but these common size statements, they are always in percentages. We need to put percentages there. But we can put those percentages maybe when we have finished these. We have finished doing the computations. So what we can do now, we can select these 2 cells, because we can't select the whole thing. Remember, if we try to select all these, remember there are some open spaces there. So what we are going to do, let's first open those two cells, because there are those open spaces which don't have numbers, so we can't just highlight everything. Let's first highlight those two cells for revenue and cost of goods sold. And now we are going to use paste special. We go to Alt ES. Alt ES for paste special. So we highlight Alt ES. So let's try to put in these formulas. We are going to get these values here. Let's do like 2, because I'm seeing if we don't, we shall get that, divide by that one, divide by the revenue, and we can also try to lock that. There are two options here. You can fail to, you can say you are not going to lock these values. This one we need to remove that negative, because there is no way you are going to do. So now what we want to do, let's come to this point here. So we want now to compute in this value here. We put in the equal sign. We are done this. We said that divide by that same number. We lock this one. Shift $sign. Hit enter. We are getting our 1. Now there is something I want you to know, that from our, because when we get this value, this one here, this one says negative 67,500,000. But now from our formatting, remember when we were formatting these negatives, the outcome here is going to come as a negative, and it will not allow it. What will happen is that when you try to put in this one divided by this, it will bring a 0, because the result is supposed to be a negative. Remember our negatives, we said they are going to be in bracket, so you'll find that this value here will be a 0 in bracket. So what do? We make sure we convert this back. We removed the formattings from this point here, and we put them with their negatives, and these are looking like hard codes. Those values look like hard codes. That's the only way you can be able to have those values displayed with their negatives. Then we shall eliminate the negatives later. So what we do, we come here, we put in an equal sign, we come and pick the values from this point. We can do like 2, then I show you the other way we can do it. We are picking this value, divide by the revenue. But this revenue is supposed to be locked. Even if you don't lock it, it will still give you the same answer. So it is bringing a negative. And this negative it is bringing, when you get this, because this one has a sum function, that's why you are seeing it is becoming a positive. So if you be in that cell and you hit your Alt, if you are using this, we can copy, Control C, we copy that, we come to this point, we use Alt, sorry. We can first copy this, Control C, we come to this, we use Alt ES, then down to, we use the down arrow, we use formulas. It means we have copied this, the value here. If you hit in that, you will see that it is the same. We've copied the formula the other side. We can also come here and highlight. We highlight using the down arrow. We hit Alt key, ES. But now, if you hit the ES, it will not bring the values. The reason why it is not bringing those values is because of the other formattings that we had in here. So we have to make sure that these values, we put them manually. We can automate them, but you have to be copying every time. then you highlight, you go to Alt ES, then you use the down arrow to paste. It is the same thing here. You can hit the F4 key to repeat the last command. But here, we are basically interested in getting the, can use the Alt key, ES, down to formulas, enter. We put in those values. But now what we want all these values to be in percentages. If you try to change this, Ctrl-Shift-5, it puts that in a percentage. If we highlight downwards, shift down arrow, Alt, ES, it will not work. We have to put all these values manually. It is because of the other, but now here I want to remove these negatives. Let's first finish filling all these values, then I show you how to remove these negatives without changing the other formats. Then we can also come to this is Ctrl-Shift-5. Then you go to this Ctrl-Shift-5. Then we also change this one, Ctrl-Shift-5. So we are going to change these values in here. These ones with the negatives, can tap the Control key to highlight all these values at once, even this. Those values, we are just going to change their formatting. We'll put them in brackets. Actually, we don't want them in brackets, but we just want to remove those negatives. We make them positive numbers. Ctrl-1, change them to black. If we do that, it means we are going to disorganize these values. Remember, they are in percentages. First undo that. We can come here and we put a negative. This is one way we can be able to remove the negative value, because we can't report in a negative. But now, when we remove these negatives, we have to make sure that we change. The other side will be, we are also going to see how we can change those values. We are going to assume that these are just negatives, because what we are doing here, we are just providing the values, but we don't want these negatives, because there is no change that you can say that we are going to report in that. So instead of summing here, we are just going to subtract. So it will be this minus this. So we are going back to our mathematical aspects. So even this, instead of adding, we shall be subtracting. Even here, we shall be subtracting. So we've been able to adjust those values to that point. So if you want, you can also try to increase in it. Maybe you put in some decimals. You can try to adjust them to that point by putting one decimal place. So those are the values that we have computed from that point. So now what you have to do is to make sure that we can now highlight these values, because we are going to copy all the way to the other last values, because we are going to get these other values here. We are not going to, the formulas are already in place, so we highlight, shift down arrow. Then we are going to use the same shift to the right, and we have to make sure that at least we have those values in there. So what we are going to do, we are going to do a fill right, that's Control R, and we shall have all those values filled up. And these values are basically following the other figures that we have in the income statement. But now, having provided those values, as you can see them, we have done a nice analysis of the income statement, and we've put those values in percentages. So effectively, what we can understand from this particular schedule is that the gross profit here, you are seeing from that perspective, we are seeing that gross profit is 55% of the company's revenue. In other words, the profit we've got after removing the costs we've incurred to produce those goods, the cost we've incurred to sell those goods is actually 45%. When we less it from our revenue, we remain with a gross profit of 55%. And out of our line item, revenue line, the company is capturing about 39 or 38% from the what? Here, from this perspective, the earnings before tax. You are seeing it is, this one is 38.9, 39, 38, 39.5. So we can take it as a rough average of, let's say, 38 or 39% in earnings before interest and tax. And now we are giving out, the company is giving away about 11 to 12%, 11 or 12% in taxes. You are seeing from the tax rates that we have here, we have 11.7, 11.7, 11.5, 11.8, 12.1, 12.4, 12.6. So average wise, we are around 11 to 12%. That's what we are giving out in terms of taxes. Meaning the company is going to be left with the net income of about 26 to 27%. Because the average value here, this is 27.3, 27.3, 26.9, 27.6, 28 point. So we take an average. We say maybe it is 26% or 28%. So that's what we are, that's what is falling through to the net incomes. So by copying the other values we've seen, the values we've copied from our income statement here, we've been able to use that information and we finalize this income statement, custom common sized income statement. So we've relied on the information that is within the income statement. We've taken all the formats that are within the income statement to make sure that at least we have this common size statement built up. And now, what's great on this is that we've also managed to change the global units marker up there on the top and the years from the assumption section of this financial model. And we've been able to make sure that the schedule is up to date. In other words, our model is up to date. When you change the figures, if you change the years, if you change the currency, you'll have an updated version of this model. So that's what we've done so far. So now, let's jump ahead to the next video and we are going to have a next lesson. We are going to look at some of what if analysis and where we can analyze sensitivities. In other words, we are going to analyze sensitivities in a sense of increments, in a sense that we may increase all the line items on the income statement by, say, 10%, 20%, or 5%, just to see what will be the impact of that increase on those numbers within our income statement. So let's jump into the next video and we will see you there, where we are going to be talking about percent setup. In other words, we are putting percentage increase and we want to see how we can be able to set up those percentage increases. We'll see you there.